Hello and a very warm welcome to another edition of World Panorama, the only show that gives you a 360-degree view of the biggest international news of the week. Straight to the top story of the week now. Well, a meeting of the Allied defense ministers opened on Wednesday with a renewed warning to Afghanistan that without a signed security agreement, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization will withdraw its forces by the end of the year. NATO plans to keep a scaled-down training mission with around 8,000 to 12,000 soldiers in Afghanistan after international troops end combat operations by the end of 2014. But both the United States and NATO have said that Karzai's refusal to sign an agreement setting the legal framework for US troops to stay could jeopardize the plan and prompt a complete pullout, dubbed as the zero option. Now, US President Barack Obama has told the Pentagon to prepare for the possibility that no US troops will be left in Afghanistan because of Karzai's refusal to sign this accord. US officials say they're increasingly resigned to waiting until Karzai leaves office after elections, that's in April, to choose a successor in hopes that the new Afghan leader might sign the deal. The stalemate over the troop agreement has frustrated the White House and the Pentagon, and it's not easy to say which way things are headed. Will Afghanistan give in to pressure or a deal will be struck? The future of Afghanistan will depend on what happens in the next few months. To talk about this, I have with me foreign policy expert Qamar Agha in the studio. Welcome. Thanks for joining me, sir. But before we start talking about what's happening in Afghanistan, look at this report.
The US and its European allies turned up the pressure on Afghanistan to authorize foreign troops on its territory after 2014, even as officials acknowledged that they may have to wait for President Hamid Karzai's successor to resolve the standoff.
The fact that President Karzai has indicated that it is unlikely he will sign the BSA means that if he doesn't sign it, it is at least possible that a successor Afghan government might sign it, but that pushes us later into the year. And the longer we go without a signed BSA, by necessity, the more narrow in size and ambition the mission for a post-2014 force would be.
The US and Afghanistan had agreed the details of a security pact last year, and the agreement was also endorsed by a council of 3,000 Afghan tribal elders known as the Loya Jirga. But Karzai caught Western officials off guard by then declaring he wanted his successor to sign the agreement.
Well, again, on Afghanistan, our view is very much aligned with that of the United States. We've worked together in Afghanistan for many years. We do want to see the bilateral security agreement signed. That is a matter for Afghanistan and the United States, but we strongly encourage President Karzai and the Afghan government to do that.
Soon after United States warning, NATO Secretary General echoed White House announcement that it is planning to withdraw all its troops from Afghanistan if a security deal cannot be agreed with the Afghan government.
My conclusion is that probably President Karzai won't sign. So that's why we have to plan for all eventualities, while at the same time we continue planning for a deployment of a training mission, assuming that a new president will sign a security agreement.
This blunt statement from Rasmussen ratchets up pressure on the Afghan president Hamid Karzai to strike a deal with the United States. Frustrated with Karzai, Obama ordered the Pentagon to accelerate planning for a full US troop withdrawal from Afghanistan by the end of this year. But Obama is also holding out hope that Afghanistan's next president, to be elected this spring, may eventually sign a stalled security agreement that could prevent the US from having to take that step. The administration would like to leave up to 10,000 troops in Afghanistan after combat operations end on December 31st to continue training Afghan forces and conduct counter-terrorism missions. But without the agreement that would give international forces legal standing to stay in Afghanistan, Obama has threatened to pull all troops out and NATO forces would follow suit.
All right, Mr. Agha, let me start by asking you what is happening really with the situation in Afghanistan. Is this threat coming in from Barack Obama really serious?
Yes, I think it is quite serious, He's quite frustrated, as he mentioned.
In the sense, is it policy from the US stating clear facts or mere, rhetoric?
No, it's a policy. They would withdraw if there is no deal. Of course, the NATO has also said, But, it's not only Karzai, it's not in the hand of Karzai alone, The next government might sign, because most of the candidates, contesting elections, they've already said they will sign. Like Abdullah, and others, Ghani, and except Sayyaf, he may not like, to sign. But most of the candidates have committed, for signing. Afghanistan needs these troops also, not because military cooperation, but also economic assistance which it receives. It comes into the billions of dollars from United States and Western nations, from the NATO member countries, So they need money also. Otherwise Afghanistan would collapse, in next year, because if they withdraw the troops, then American will not give money also. The aid and the infrastructure development program which is going on in Afghanistan all these things would collapse and the government would collapse. Therefore, I'm very hopeful, probably, as Karzai has said also earlier, that he might sign before leaving the office, or the next president, because American troops are going to stay till December 2014, this year. And still time is there. The next government will install by July, August maximum, maybe before that. So something would come out. Most of the observers, they believe. Also
the fact that America perhaps has history on its side, what happened in Iraq while, as far as the troop withdrawal is concerned. So these words from the White House and later echoed by the NATO chief do seem credible that the US might actually consider pulling out all of the troops from Afghanistan, and also which would have massive repercussions for Afghanistan as such, because the possibility of, the resurgence of militancy.
Yes, of course, that is there, this possibility. Second thing you should also understand, Sana, Afghanistan is a very strategically located country,
Absolutely.
It, connects South Asia with Central Asia and Middle East also. It's just there, Persian Gulf region, So therefore it is very important for the Americans. And ever since, even when the Russian troops or Soviet troops came into Afghanistan, at that time the President Jimmy Carter has said that they will not allow any outside force to come to the Persian Gulf region, oil-rich Persian Gulf region. So therefore, for them it is very important. It is part of the West Asia because of Iran is there, which is part of the Persian Gulf region, as well as Central Asia. It is a gateway to Central Asia also. Central Asia is another oil-rich region, because if American goes, and then it means the Iranian influence will grow there. Right. Iranian influence means the Russian and Chinese will come on the back of Iran, Therefore, for them, for Americans, Afghanistan becomes very, very important. Not only for Afghanistan, for the Saudis also. Saudi would like to see, the Iranian influence do not come to the Afghanistan and further down to South Asia. They are also, that's why they are giving money to everybody, especially to the militant organizations also, just to prevent the Iranian influence in Afghanistan, because Iran and Afghanistan has a deep historical ties. The language, Pashtun language or the Dari language, the other languages which is generally spoken in Afghanistan are different dialects of the Persian language,
Right.
So they have a history of connectivity, So therefore, then Iran has a very deep ties with the leaders of the Northern Alliance, the Tajik, the Uzbek, the Hazaras, and the other communities. They are very close to them. If you combine all these minorities in Afghanistan, they come to around 52%, Pashtuns are only 42%,
That's a huge
but very
number.
powerful community, Pashtun. So all the president comes from this community, but others are there, Tajik is another 27%, Hazara 9 to 10, Uzbek is also 9 to 10, and others are 10-15%,
Right. Now let me draw your for the benefit of our viewers, it's important for us to know that how it all started and why is there friction between, Barack Obama and Hamid Karzai. It's over this bilateral security agreement, also known as the BSA. If you, sir, could help us, our viewers, in explaining what this security agreement is all about.
You see, it's a long-term agreement, before withdrawing from American troops, or the NATO would like to have this agreement, because under this agreement, military assistance will continue to come. Not only military assistance, then also strategic ties which Afghanistan has with Americans will continue to come, The reconstruction of Afghanistan is part of this, So it's a very important agreement in the sense.
And why is Hamid Karzai now refusing to sign?
Here, Hamid Karzai at the moment is dealing with the Taliban. He is, in the end, he wants to emerge as a major leader of Afghanistan, want to continue to play a dominant role in Afghan politics. For that, he thinks, dealing with Taliban is very important,
Okay.
and for his security, personal, and the future role which he wants to play in Afghanistan. So therefore, at the moment, he is acting tough, because this is one of the Taliban's condition is one of them, that all foreign troops should withdraw from Afghanistan. So he is negotiating with the Taliban secretly and covertly, overtly, both,
Right.
It has come already in the paper. But the problem is, there is another factor in Afghan politics, that is Pakistan. Because the Pakistan is one country, which is openly and brazenly supporting Taliban, it's a strategic ally or it's a proxy in Afghanistan, because their game plan is to see, once the American troops withdraw, topple the government there or install pro-Pakistan regime, so that, a regime which should be dependent on Pakistan rather than, not a friendly regime, because they are following the policy of a strategic depth. With the help of Taliban, they want to go to Central Asia and further, the oil-rich region,
Right.
So for them, Pakistan, this is where last time, when Pervez General Musharraf was chief of the army staff, at that time he sent along with Taliban almost 40 to 80,000 troops, mostly belonging to Frontier Corps. So this time again, they'll not only send Taliban but also their military to Afghanistan. So for that matter, I think it is important if Americans are there,
Right.
they can prevent to some extent the Pakistani troops entering into the Afghanistan.
Also, I wanted to ask you, I read somewhere that, if NATO is to pull out all its forces from Afghanistan, that might actually extend now, the timetable now says it might, go ahead into 2015. Is that also a possibility?
There are lots of possibilities, once the negotiation starts, all these things would come up. But one thing is certain, once they will withdraw, the vacuum would be created. So everybody, is trying to fill that vacuum. We believe, India believe, this should be filled by the local Afghan army and the people, there.
Right.
If the election, I believe if free and fair elections takes place, then democracy would be strengthened. Afghan people are sick and tired of the war. That is continuing for decades, 3-4 decades now.
Right.
They want peace, they want to live in peace. They don't want Taliban, they don't want... But the problem is, the Taliban are from the lawless region, which is in Pakistan,
The economy of Afghanistan as a whole for Afghanistan this year might be a very crucial, a very decisive year as to how things go ahead. First the elections and then what happens with the troop pullout. Mr. Qamar Agha, thank you so much for joining me on the show and sharing your thoughts with our viewers. With that, we're taking a very short break. Lots more in store up ahead. Stay tuned for a report on Italy's youngest Prime Minister, 39-year-old Matteo Renzi. In his first address, he pledges to revolutionize the country's economy. Stay tuned. Thanks for staying with us. Italian Premier Matteo Renzi won a crucial confidence vote in Parliament on his brand new government, managing, at least for now, to tamp down anger from among his own Democrats over his brash, quick rise to power. Facing Parliament for the first time, Renzi, who is also Italy's youngest Prime Minister, sketched out an ambitious program of change in an hour-long speech delivered in his trademark quick-fire style, interspersed with occasional jeers from the opposition benches.
Italy's new Prime Minister Matteo Renzi won his second and final vote of confidence in Italy's lower house on Tuesday.
Di Stefano Manlio.
In the lower house, the new leader won the vote by 378 to 220. Facing Parliament for the first time, Renzi, who is Italy's youngest premier, sketched out an ambitious program of change in an hour-long speech.
Che affronti prima del semestre europeo.
We need to sort out before we take over our turn at the head of European Union. The issues of employment, fiscal reform, public administration and justice. We need to put at the center the value of schooling, but we need to start naturally from institutional, constitutional and electoral reform on which an agreement already stands that goes beyond this majority that forms this government and in which we will respect the timing and modality that were agreed.
He also devoted more attention to the European Union, saying Italy's 6-month presidency of the region from July was a gigantic opportunity to establish a greater role for the country in shaping EU policy.
The Europe that we want, as we often said during our time in politics. What we want is a Europe where Italy doesn't go to receive the line it needs to follow and to receive instructions on what it needs to do, but instead a Europe where Italy gives a fundamental contribution because there can be no Europe without Italy.
The positive outcome was widely expected since Renzi's Democratic Party has a clear majority in the lower house, while it needs the support of smaller centrist and centre-right groups to secure a majority in the Senate. Analysts say it will be tricky for Renzi to push through his extremely challenging agenda of overhauls, including revamping Italy's tax system and radically overhauling the Italian Senate ahead of Italy's presidency of the European Union in July, without a strong parliamentary backing.
As many as 10 Indian Americans have announced their decision to enter the race for 2014 congressional elections in US. All of them are vying for elected public offices, including the House of Representatives. Here's a look at all these candidates. The 2014 general elections in the US are still more than 8 months away, but aspirants have already announced their candidature. There are at least 10 of them who are of Indian origin. Ami Bera, the only Indian American congressman and the third ever, is seeking re-election from the 7th Congressional District of California. Another Indian American, Kamala Harris, too announced her decision to seek re-election for Attorney General of California. Republican Neil Kashkari has entered the fray for the top post of Governor of California. If elected, he would be the third ever Indian American governor after Bobby Jindal of Louisiana and Nikki Haley of South Carolina. However, all eyes are expected to be on the 17th Congressional District of California, from where Ro Khanna, the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Commerce in the Obama administration, has thrown up a serious challenge to his own party colleague Mike Honda. Khanna has not only raised a record amount of funds, but has also taken services of the victory team of the Obama's re-election campaign. The 17th Congressional District has gained added attraction as another Indian American, Vanilla Mathur Singh, an associate professor at Stanford University School of Medicine, has entered the fray from the Republican Party. While Singh has little chance of winning the seat, this would be for the first time that two Indian Americans are contesting against each other from one congressional seat. Upendra Chivukula, the first Indian American lawmaker in the New Jersey State Assembly, this month announced his intention to try his luck for the US House of Representatives from 12th Congressional District of New Jersey, which is being vacated by his own party colleague Rush Holt. Chivukula would have won the Democratic primary this summer to bag the party's ticket for November elections. He'd lost the 2012 House elections from a different seat. Iraq war veteran Manan Trivedi has announced to contest for the third consecutive House of Representatives election from 6th Congressional District of Pennsylvania. Top Republican leader Paul Ryan, who was the vice presidential candidate in the 2012 elections, is receiving a serious challenge from Indian American Amardeep Kaleka from the 1st Congressional District of Wisconsin. Kaleka is son of the president of Sikh Temple of Wisconsin, Satwant Kaleka, who was shot dead by white supremacists in a Gurdwara shootout in 2012. Swati Dandekar, the first Indian American to be elected to Iowa House of Representatives in 2002, is seeking to enter the House of Representatives from the 1st Congressional District of Iowa. She has received quite a support from Indian Americans. Indian American Manju Goyal is seeking election on a Republican ticket from 8th Congressional District of Illinois. And much else has been unfolding around the world. Here's a quick wrap of the other international news of the week.
Ukraine said on Thursday it would regard any movements by Russian military in Crimea outside the Russian Black Sea Fleet's base in Sevastopol as an act of aggression. Acting President Alexander Turchinov issued the warning in the National Parliament after armed men seized the regional government and parliament buildings in Crimea, where some ethnic Russians want the region to join the Russian Federation. Armed men seized the regional government building and the parliament building in Ukraine's Crimea on 26 February of a confrontation between pro-Russia separatists and supporters of the country's new leaders. Forces loyal to Syria's president killed at least 175 Islamist rebel fighters, most of them foreigners, in an ambush in insurgent-held eastern outskirts of Damascus. Syrian state television broadcast images of dozens of bodies of men strewn along a rural road running through open fields near Otaiba, a town in the eastern Ghouta area outside Damascus. An anti-Taliban all-parties conference in Lahore called on Pakistan government to stop all negotiations with the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan because the banned militant group has become a menace for the entire country. The conference was called by the Sunni Ittihad Council, a moderate Islamist party, and was attended by several mainstream religious and political parties. India and Saudi Arabia signed a defense cooperation agreement on Wednesday after Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud arrived in New Delhi on a 3-day official visit. The two countries signed an MOU for greater exchange of information and training after a meeting between the Crown Prince and Indian Vice President Mohammad Hamid Ansari, a former envoy to Saudi Arabia. In a bid to promote winter destinations and attract tourists in Jammu and Kashmir, the state government organized a 2-day snow festival in Pahalgam district. Although tourists throng Pahalgam during summers, but the provincial government aimed at increased tourist inflow during winters as well through snow festival. The festival initiated a new trend by attracting more tourists. Despite freezing temperatures, rugby players wooed audience.
Shifting gears, time to bring you up to speed with all the sports news that you might have missed this week. Here's all the sports action.
A South African judge ruled that the murder trial of Olympic and Paralympic track star Oscar Pistorius can be televised, giving millions around the world direct access to one of the most sensational celebrity trials since O.J. Simpson's. 27-year-old Pistorius has admitted to shooting his girlfriend, model Riva Steenkamp, at his Pretoria home on Valentine's Day last year, but has said it was a tragic accident in which he had mistaken Steenkamp for an intruder. If convicted of murder, he faces up to life in prison. The trial is due to start 3rd March. German veteran Franz Beckenbauer was in Tripoli on 26 February to take part in a ceremony to launch the foundation of a soccer stadium to host the 2017 Africa Cup of Nations. The 68-year-old German, who won the World Cup for Germany as a player in 1974 and as a coach in 1990, remembered the message from the late Nelson Mandela while highlighting what the tournament can do for Libya. Austrian company PORR will build Libya's national stadium, which will have a capacity of 60,000, on the site of a military camp of the former regime in the Tajura suburb of Tripoli. After winning the 2nd Olympic gold medal of his career at the Sochi Games, America's best skier Ted Ligety thinks he has reached his prime. The 29-year-old from Park City, Utah, became the first American alpine racer to claim 2 Olympic gold medals when he won the giant slalom in Russia. He was already among the only 5 American men to win Olympic gold in ski racing when he won the Super Combine at the Torino Games. The Hennessy Venom GT isn't just pretty to look at. It's now known as the fastest sports car in the world. The supercar set a new land speed record earlier this month, clocking in at 435.31 km per hour. It narrowly beats the world record held by Bugatti's Veyron Supersport. The record-setting run happened earlier this month at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida on a runway made for space shuttle landings.
Well, time now for all the very latest news from the world of movies, music and lifestyle. Here's our entertainment wrap. CNN has decided to end the marquee primetime talk show hosted by veteran British journalist Piers Morgan. A day for the final broadcast of Piers Morgan Live on CNN had not been determined, and a spokeswoman did not immediately say if Morgan would remain at the network in any other role. The talk show host had infuriated conservatives during his 3-year run on CNN with frequent discourses on gun control. The NAACP paid tribute to the late South African president and anti-apartheid leader Nelson Mandela at the Image Awards in Pasadena, California. The Image Awards, organized by the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, are considered the top entertainment honors from an African American point of view and brought together a star-studded crowd that included show host and media magnate Oprah Winfrey, British actor Idris Elba and actress Kerry Washington. Singer Beyoncé dazzled in Versace during a concert at Birmingham's LG Arena. She launched the European leg of her Mrs. Carter's Show World Tour on 20th February. The singer wore a silver and white Versace outfit laced with black leather as she sang her 2011 hit Run the World.
Some of them think they freak just like we do, but no they don't. Make your check come and they...
The tour is set to run for 5 weeks and will include performances in the UK, Ireland, Portugal, Spain, Holland, Belgium and Germany. Comedy director and actor Harold Ramis, best known for films such as Ghostbusters and Groundhog Day and Caddyshack, died at the age of 69 of complications from a rare vascular disease. Known for his dry wit, he worked on other comedy scripts before making his directorial debut in 1980 with Caddyshack, followed 3 years later by National Lampoon's Vacation.
Weighing approximately 600 pounds. That's a big Twinkie.
He went on to star as Dr. Aegon Spengler in Ivan Reitman's cult comedy franchise Ghostbusters.
Life doesn't care about your vision, okay?
Well, that's all we have for you in this edition of World Panorama. See you next week, same time with more international news. Till then, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. As I sign off, take a look as 6,000 musicians representing 65 bands gathered for the annual band festival in Oruro department of Bolivia. This festival is part of the run-up to the bigger Oruro Carnival. That's Bolivia's largest annual celebration. Goodbye.